Welcome back, guys. So we're still talking with Olayinka Oyedeji. She's a financial advisor, and she is still talking everything RESP. And where we stopped from the part one was, um, we're talking about if people want to like try and beat the system and go on like, okay, let's like child needs 200k, let me quickly go and save it in RESP, but I also need extra like 100k, so let me add it to it. So in the previous, if you watch the previous video, she talked about how the government had already put contingency plans in place so that you don't cheat the system and you can only put a cap of 50 grand into your RESP per child. So my question now is, all these RESP, I asked earlier when we first started, if this child says, I don't want to go to school, I want to be in the house for a while. I don't like, what if the child doesn't want to go to school altogether? Or let's say that the child gets scholarships all through their years. What happens to my money? Is it that the government will just like,
I wish. Okay, so because we are in a very fair community and the government wouldn't want to do that, what the government does is that if the child doesn't use it all, what if the very sad scenario is that the child dies? What the government would do is that, and you don't have anybody to transfer the RESP to, like there's no other person to transfer the RESP to, you can get back your money to just be like a saving portfolio for you. But the government will remove their own share.
or that money that they've been giving you over the years to cap up whatever it is.
Okay. So all the match up and all the incentive from the government will be removed, but your contributions and the interest. There's that interest part. I don't know if you talked about that part.
No, you haven't.
Okay, so RESP is just a vehicle. You can now use it to do so many things. You can leave it as savings. Oh, I don't want anything to touch my capital, GICs, or just fixed deposits or something very like 0.001% interest.
Guys, I should not lie, GIC suck.
But for those that don't want anything to affect their capital. But now there are other forms of investments depending on your risk appetite. You still have some form of conservative ones that you can put it into, or you can go into like a balanced portfolio. So something like mutual funds, and all of that. So RESP, just like TFSA or your RRSP, is just a vehicle. So it now depends on your risk appetite for you to know what you want out of it. But have it in mind that it's a long-term thing. So try to I'm not telling you to be very aggressive with your investments, but at least have some appetite for risk.
Yeah, because I'm just even looking at it like, okay, like Jamilaju just clocked one. She still has 17 more years for me to save up for education, right? So for me, the reason why I went for the Irish one, because I don't have anything to lose, basically, because I still have 18 more years. If by age 5, I see that the money is not yielding so much, then I can say, okay, no, let me go and pull my money and do something else. And that's another question I wanted to ask you. Can I, God forbid, the person goes into a financial crisis and doesn't have any money, and the RESP that they've been saving is all they have? What happens? Can they withdraw from it?
Nope. RESP is locked in for the beneficiary. You are not the beneficiary, you are just the subscriber. So it's the beneficiary that can take the money, except, when we talked about it, that, those kind of other situations, but it's not your savings account. It's not meant for you to just go during your rainy days and pick up. That's what your TFSA is for, or maybe your savings account or whatever, but it is not yours. It's saving towards your child education.
So what about the one I say for myself? Because that's the first time I'm even hearing someone say that I can actually, so if I know that I'm going for my MBA, I can go to the bank or like an institution and say, you know what, I'm looking forward to having my MBA, let's say in Queen's College or Queen's University, or Ivy League. I want to start saving. So do I also give myself that same, like, what would you advise someone that wants to go in for like a master's program, a PhD program, doesn't have scholarships or whatnot, and says, you know what, I need this help. How can I navigate creating this RESP, and how do you think I can start saving that money to be able to meet up my goal for that season?
Okay, so the same with the child RESP, the maximum going to be $50,000. So now it depends on how aggressive and the time frame you have before you start your program. So you know that $50,000, if it's just within maybe 5 years, so maybe you want to do $10,000 yearly. So now the good thing for that type of plan, like if you want to go back to school and you don't want to get student loan or you don't have scholarship and all of that, is that instead of you saving that money in your TFSA and using up your contribution for your TFSA, why not just make use of what the government also provided that will still be in a form of tax-free compounding interest, but when you want to get it, you'll still pay a form of tax.
So similar to the RRSP. Do you know that RRSP always paid me? I can't even lie to you. I am saving my own money, my own retirement money. And you now go and I say, okay, you know what? I want my money, or I need some part of my money because I want to use it for an investment or something. And government will now say, oh, welcome back. Let's take our own share. And they just leak your money.
Okay. So I know let's get this straight. It's not exactly the same as RRSP. For RESP, for the child, when they're about taking out the money, it is not your contributions, but you know your contribution has already been taxed. So it's the interest on it, it's going to be like a dividend kind of. So it's the interest on it. And because the person is just starting life, like the child most likely hasn't worked before, so it's more or less like zero tax. Students have tax credits. So for children that are getting into post-secondary institutions, they actually do not really have that effect on that. So it's little or nothing. But for you and as an adult, it will not also be the old money that will be taxed. It's going to be the interest. Unlike RRSP is just save today, let the government have their money tomorrow. So you are getting a tax return now when you are in the high tax bracket. You didn't forget that. Good. But at the end, when you are getting that retirement, you would have actually, you will no longer be in that high tax bracket anymore.
Sure.
So the tax you'll be getting from it, yes, you'll get a tax, but it will be reduced.
That's true. Okay, so we've covered the different types. We've covered who benefits. We've covered how to work around things. Now, when it comes to the child themselves, how does it work? They're handing over. So let's say the child is 18 now, and the child is about going into university. Like some are 16, some are 15, some are 17. They're going to the university.
Yeah.
So this child, is it that money goes to the school the child is going to, or the money goes to the child's account, or how does that work?
Okay, so it's not like all the money will just be transferred to the child at once. Okay. The child would access the money as educational assistance payment, EAP. So that's what they call it when the child is about getting the beneficiary is about getting it. So in the first 13 weeks that the child starts school, the child can only access $5,000. You know, here also, it's not like you pay for the whole year. You pay per course, then you pay per semester, and in all of that. So you get the money in bits like that. So that's how it's not like you just transfer all the money into your account.
Okay. Do you have any other tips for us before we ask our next question?
Okay. The other tip I have about RESP is you need to shop around. Just the same way you are shopping around for mortgage for the best thing for you, you also need to shop around for your RESP. There are so many RESP opportunities, not just your bank. It doesn't mean that because you bank with Bank A, all your investment portfolios has to be with that bank. You can make use of other banks. You can make use of different platforms. You know what I talked about, the other credit unions, the investors, and all of that, because there are some of them that even give, if you contribute consistently, they give you a form of commitment bonus. So aside your interest, aside the government's incentive, you get a form of extra
Okay.
when you are consistent. So they all have different things. So the best thing is shop around, see the one that best suits you, and go for it. And as I said, you don't need to have just one RESP for your child. So not like you need to like transfer a whole RESP because I found a better deal, then you move it on. You can open another one as long as the total amount is not more than 50,000.
And that doesn't affect the child or my contribution or anything.
No.
So, as an African coming from Nigeria, you did your primary, secondary. So this woman, she's doing financial advisor, but she did primary, secondary, university, masters, PhD. Do you think this kind of incentive can ever work in Africa? And if yes, how do you think we can work around it with this cloud of corruption that is mostly around the Nigerian system?
Okay, but you know that in Nigeria, people are still like having children accounts, and they also save for the children's education. So it's not like the African continent are not buying into these things.
Okay.
There are some progressive minds that are actually doing it for their children. I think there are some different organizations, institutions that are doing the same thing for their children.
Okay.
But the only part is the part that the government has to like put in the
also so that's the crux of my like boil is that I know, because I know some people. I remember my mom even had always wanted us to open a first bank account when we're younger, right? There's smart accounts.
Exactly.
GT has a lot of banks that I know in Nigeria have it, but you know this particular thing we're talking about is basically driven by the government. It's just you that you're putting your money into, like a machine that's an already level playing ground that is already working in the system.
Yeah.
Can that ever happen in a place like Nigeria?
I can't say, but one of the things I think I should just say is that, here people were already used to the student loan. So I feel the government wants to reduce that load on them, and they want parents to be kind of responsible for their children. A lot of parents, they just believe that, okay, when you are born, and especially when you're in that low income bracket, the government pays all of this. So parents are not actually responsible,
going out of their way to actually make sure that the kids actually have that better life.
When you get to the post-secondary institution also, you get the loan yourself, and when you grow up and you start working, you pay back to your, so like the parent is out of
the equation almost all your life, and
unfortunately
the kid grows that resentment to, you know what, my parents didn't do anything for me. So you hear people say at the age of 15 their kids should go and work, start paying rent in the house, and in my head I'm like, you said it was when I got here. And that was one of my culture shock, right? Where and I'm gonna ask you, what was your culture shock when you landed? For me, my first culture shock, apart from people saying pants, not trouser, and so many other things, for me it was the fact that I was seeing people tell me that their children were paying house rent in their house. I'm like,
and they'll be proud to say that, right?
I'm like, how does that work? Like, how does that work? So for you, when the government has created all this level of incentives for people, I think that it's like you said, it's high time parents go back. Your job is not just to bring this child to the world and feed the child and buy clothes for the child. Even for those that do that, your part of your job is also to give your child that better life you did not have, so that when your child gets to that place, they're able to also hand over the baton to their own kids and say, my mom bought a house for me, I'm going to give my children a house. And my parents did this, I'm going to.
For me. So even if they need to still get the student loan, maybe because the fees are still higher than what the parents saved, but at least you know that your parents tried.
Yeah.
And at least there's no how to reduce the repayment of your loans. So that's what I see here. But in Nigeria, we all know that our parents are responsible for us. Like you are the god and master of your family. You can't go somewhere else and start saying, oh, the government will start when the child is not on scholarship. You get right. So it will take a very long time before the Nigerian government will think of adding some incentives to education plan and all of that, because it's not our culture.
Well, we pray that we have a better culture. But before we round up, I wanted to ask you, what was that cultural shock when you landed?
Well, will I say it's a culture shock? My own first thing was the weather shock. It wasn't culture shock, even though I schooled in the UK for a while, and I was saying, oh, it was cold, leaving Nigeria and I'm going to the UK. But when I got here, I was like, definitely I'm going to go back to the UK in the heat of their winter, and I'm going to wear like a regular shirt, because I know that I've been in the Canada place that that it's not, my own is not culture, my own is weather shock.
Wow. I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions. So how can they reach you? How can they contact you? How can they have conversations? And also, what if there are institutions that you feel like you want to suggest to us? What institutions will you say, oh, let's start putting our savings in there, or let's start putting our contributions in here? Or since we can put in different places, so where else can I put my contribution except my bank? If you have any like reputable ones that you would like to tell that people.
Okay, I'm not promoting anyone, so I wouldn't want to exactly mention names. But the thing is, we can always like have a chit chat behind this show, and we look at your plan, we look at your budget, then we assess your needs, then we know where it will be best. But I won't say, okay, put it in this or put it in that. They are all good. Like, what I want to just know is, even if it's in your bank, please don't put it in GIC. At least I can say that. Don't just let it lie like that.
GIC as show me Pepe. I remember, I think 2 years ago, this person sold GIC to me, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. And she told me everything. So I didn't even like, I was just getting familiar with the system. So I'm like, okay, no problem. First year, I said, when you are almost, when you are refreshing the app, and you're like, nothing, guys, nothing came out of, like, I went to the bank, I said, I want to empty this, I'm done, I'm not interested. I waited the 2 years out, and that was what pained me the most. For every other market space, because I do like NASDAQ, all the whatever, I still call them like, okay, you know what, I want to use money for this. It takes some processing time, but they're able to withdraw it. But GIC, you're locked for 2 years, I waited my 2 years, guys. For that 2 years, I didn't get up to $100. And I'm telling you that the amount
because it was just flexible GIC.
No, if I tell you how much I actually saved, because it was bulk of that money I went to use for my wedding. If I tell you how much I saved, guys,
I can say that anywhere, because it is RESP, it is long-term investment. At least improve on your risk. At least I don't want to necessarily say high risk, but improve your risk appetite. Thank you.
Guys, I'm sure you had a blast watching this. I had fun recording this. She was first saying, oh, let's not do it today, I don't want to do video, but I'm excited, and I like that she's losing up on the camera. We have that effect.
No.
We have the extra touch. But thank you guys for watching. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel. More content. We're going to be recording another video, and it's going to be about us being moms. So I'm excited for that. Make sure that you subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell so you can get brand new videos from me. So we see you next time. Bye.